Hello everyone, you welcome back to Teebelle channel. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for your likes and also for your words of encouragement, which is really much appreciated. If you're watching my video for the very first time, please subscribe. I want to hit the 1000 target. I'm just a little number short of 1000. Please subscribe. God bless you. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing us how to make a tube, strapless or boob top, whatever name you want to pick out of these three. This is what this is called. So this is going to be a foundational tutorial video for the corsetry that I'm going to go into, because you need to understand the basics, which is the tube top. This is like an introductory tutorial video into the corset videos that I'm going to be releasing on this channel. That is why I went ahead to first of all make this video, and it's going to make corset making very easy for you. Just follow the process I used in the video, which will be the subsequent process I'm going to be using for the corset, either Victoria, either cup corset. That is what I'm going to be using. This video can be a long one or a short one, depending. If it's a short one, this is going to be only pattern drafting and cutting. Then the next one will be the sewing process. The sewing process is a thorough sewing process, which is an inseam sewing process. So if this video is too long, then the next video will be about the sewing tutorial. But if not, everything will be in this video. Without further ado, let's get into the video. These are the materials that I'm going to be using. I have my fabric. It's just a little bit over a yard, I think. Then I have the lining also for the inner part of the tube, and I also have my stay. I have this soft wadding. It's not the very thick one, it's just the soft one, because it's a tutorial video, so I'm not using the very thick one. You can use the half-inch foam for if you don't want to use the soft wadding for this, if you are making for a client, or use a cup for the tube part. You just attach in your cup for the tube part, but I'm not going to be using these two. What I'm only going to be using is the soft wadding. Then I will also go ahead to use my stay. So I have my basic bodies here, which I already traced out. I have a video on the channel on how to draft your basic bodies. Please watch, you will understand much more better. What I did was to place the basic bodies like so on the pattern paper, a new pattern paper, and I traced both the front and the back out. So this is what it is. The front and the back bodies is what I have presently on the pattern paper. The next thing I'm going to do is to use my black marker to highlight my front bodies and back bodies out for us to see it clearly before going ahead to transform these bodies into tube top. After tracing it out, what I did was to go ahead to label my pattern. So please, if you've not watched my video on how to draft a basic bodies blog, you can watch it on the channel. The very first place I'm going to be working on is on the front side, which is the most important. So I'm going to be using the red marker to mark out where I'm going to be needing for the tube top, while the black marker is going to be where I'm going to be cutting off. And the very first thing I'm going to measure is my underbust measurement. This is very important. You need your underbust measurement. That is the length of your underbust, not the circumference. This time around is the length of your underbust. Once I've gotten the length of my underbust, I will go ahead to do my bust tightening or contouring. Some people just go ahead to mark maybe 0.5 inches or so, but what I do is I calculate it to give me the accuracy of what I want. By calculating, my natural underbust is 75 centimeters, and I'm going to go ahead to divide this by 4, and it's going to give me 18.75 centimeter, approximately 19 centimeters. And in inches, this is in centimeters. In inches, I'm going to calculate it for us too. For those who are using inches, my natural underbust in inches is 29.5 inches. Divided by 4 is going to give me 7.4 inches. So I have my natural underbust calculated on this pattern. I went ahead to divide it by 4 because I'm only going to be using it for the front side, and what I have presently on my pattern paper is half of my front and half of my back, so I need to divide it by 4 instead of 2. I hope we get that. Then once I am done doing this, the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead to measure what I have on my pattern paper at the underbust, because there's an excess and I need to shape or tighten or contour this underbust to give me a close fitting to my body. So for my pattern underbust, what I have is 23.5 centimeters. In inches, it is 9.2 inches. You can see that it is way bigger than what I have after dividing my natural underbust by 4. So what I'm going to do is to deduct my pattern underbust from my natural underbust divided by 4. That is all there is to it about underbust tightening, contouring, or eliminating the excesses underneath the bust to give a perfect fit of the body, which is what this tube top needs. It's going to be pattern on the bust minus my natural on the bust. So how do I do this? My pattern on the bust is 23.5 centimeters, which is 9.2 inches, and my natural on the bust is 18.75 centimeters, approximately 19 centimeters, which is 7.4 inches. So I'm going to take my 23 centimeter, which is the bigger and is my pattern on the bust. I will deduct it from my natural on the bust, which is smaller and is 19 centimeters. What I'm going to get is 4.5 centimeters. Going ahead to calculate in inches, I have 9.2 inches minus 7.4 inches is going to give me 1.8 inches. This is close to 2 inches. You can see the excess I have at the underbust. This excesses is what I'm going to be deducting from my pattern to give me my natural underbust. And how do I do it? I'm going to distribute this by the side of the dot line along the underbust. If you notice, there is already a deduction underneath the underbust because my dart is passing through my underbust. So what I'm going to do is from the very dart line, the middle line at the dart, I'm going to place my tape rule like so, and I'm going to give this side where my finger is presently the excess, and the front side is going to take the shortest part of it. So let's assume I have 4.5 centimeters. What I'm going to be doing is at the center front where my tape rule is, I'm going to be giving it 1.5 centimeters, and at the side front I'm going to be giving it 3 centimeters. This 3 centimeters or 1.5 centimeters is inclusive of the excesses I have underneath my bust. So I'm going to connect this line to my waist dart. With what I just did, I've done my underbust tightening or contouring or reduction. So the next thing I'm going to do is to mark the midpoint of my shoulder. I'm going to find the midpoint of the shoulder. Let's say my shoulder length is, for instance, 12 centimeters. 12 centimeter is like 5 inches or so. I'm going to find the midpoint of that very line. Once I've found the midpoint, I will just go ahead to dot that mark and pick up my ruler, connect from that very center point to my dart line. I'm going to connect from the center point to my dart line at the waist. Once I'm done with that, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to come up from the bust line by 8 to 10 centimeters. 8 to 10 centimeters in inches is between 3.5 inches to 4 inches. So I went up from my bust point by 3.5 to 4 inches. So the next thing I'm going to be doing now is my overbust tightening. For some people, this is what they do. They go to their underbust, measure it the way my tape rule is on it like that, and take whatever you have at the side front of the underbust over to the overbust, then take whatever they have at the center front of the underbust over to the overbust, and it works perfectly, believe me sincerely. For instance, the way I have 4.5 centimeters for my underbust tightening, this is what I'm going to be taking to the overbust to also tighten the upper part of my bust. Once they are done with this, they connect these lines together and it gives you the perfect tightening for your overbust without any gaping of your tube top, and they will connect it like so. I do it sometimes this way because it is also a perfect method to tighten your overbust. But for me, what I do is, since I wouldn't be needing the upper part of my bodies at all, I wouldn't be needing it. I just need it from where the 8 to 10 centimeters I measured for the overbust. What I do is just to close my shoulder dart completely. I'm going to go ahead to close the shoulder dart area completely. Once I'm done with the closing of the shoulder dart, this will not let me calculate if I have too much excesses or gaping at the overbust. Once I'm done closing up the shoulder dart the way I'm doing, I have done my overbust tightening. This is a very simple and easier method to do your overbust tightening, and you can see where my marker passed through. It's also along that same line I used my pencil to connect the first method. So you can either use the first method, which is taking your underbust tightening to your overbust to tighten it, or just close your shoulder dart completely and you have your overbust tightening. It is as simple and as easy as it is. Along the new line from the shoulder point that I just made, what I'm going to do is to go up by 8 to 10 centimeters, depending on how modest you want your tube top to be. You can go up higher if you are not comfortable, and you can just maintain your 10 centimeters. 10 centimeters is 4 inches. The next thing I'm going to do now is to use my ruler to connect the type of neck that I prefer. For some people, they can do a straight line, which is okay. But for me, I'm going to come up from my chest line by 4 to 3 centimeters. You can do less, you can do more of this. This is dependent on how deep or how high you want this tube neckline to be. Once I'm done with this, the next thing I'm going to do is to connect my underbust tightening to my bust point, which is the very line on my bust point. I'm going to connect my underbust tightening to my bust point, then from my bust point to my tube line at the upper side. And for the other side, I'm also going to connect from that very line that I just highlighted with my red marker to my underbust. You need to put your curve ruler very well so that you won't have a sharp edge at your bust point, just the way I put my ruler. I'm going to connect the lines together. Once I'm done connecting, this is an easy way to make your tube top. I'll go ahead to cancel the space in between the dart lines that I have at the shoulder and at the waist. This is an indication that those places that I just cancelled will be cut off. These are the excesses on the body that are not needed. Then I will go in by the armhole by 1.5 centimeters, go up also by 1.5 centimeters to tighten my armhole. Or you can use 0.5 inches. You go in by 0.5 inches, go up by 0.5 inches. Then I'll use my curve ruler to connect from the shoulder dart towards the armhole I went up by 1.5 centimeters or 0.5 inches. Then the next thing I'm going to do is mark whatever I have for my nipple to nipple at the waist to the hem line of the top, because this top is to the hip line, not to the waistline, and I connected each of this side of the new line to the dart line. With this, I am done with the tube top. Whatever it is left is just a little tweak on how to make it fit firmly the way I want. So I'm going ahead to check what I have at the hip line, because I knew I added excess to my hip pattern, my basic hip pattern. So I'm going ahead to mark what I have. My hip is 100 centimeters. 100 centimeters is a little bit less than 40 inches. So I have more than my hip divided by 4 at the hip. I went in by the excesses, I eliminated it, then came up by 2.5 centimeters. 2.5 centimeters in inches is just an inch. Then use my curve ruler to connect, because I don't want this tube top to be sharp at the hip side. With this, I am done drafting the front pattern of the tube top, and I also went ahead to cancel the part I'm not going to be needing. The next part I'm going to be working on is my back bodies, to give it a fittings just like the way I gave my front a fittings to the bodies. What I'm going to do first is to go ahead to mark my nipple to nipple, or across back divided by 4, connect the dart line to my armhole line at the back and to my hip line also at the back. Afterwards, I'll go ahead to eliminate a little bit of excess. What I went in to do is to go out at both sides of the just connected line at the armhole by 1 centimeters. So in inches, you can do 0.5 inches at both sides. This is to tighten your back bodies for the tube to fit in very well, just like the way I did for the armhole at the front. Went in by 1.5 centimeter, went up by 1.5 centimeters. This is what I'm going to be doing for the back armhole too. If you are using inches, go in by 0.5 inches, go up by 0.5 inches, and you connect your line to get your tightening. The next one is the depth at which I want the back tube to be. Some can just connect straight up, but for me, I'm going to measure whatever length I want the tube to be. Then I will go ahead to connect from the new armhole where I measured to the center back, and I will also go ahead to reduce the excesses I have at the hip, just like I did for the front. I'm going to go ahead to reduce my excesses at the hip, just like the way I did for the front. I will go up by 2.5 centimeters, which is 1 inch, and connect back to my hip. Just like that, I have my tube top. It is very easy, it is fast. Once you follow the method, you will get exactly what I got for my tube top in this video. So what I'm doing now is to go ahead to label it in order for me not to mix each of this part up. After this, I'll just go ahead to add my seam allowance around the bodies. Note that because this is an inseam sewing, you don't need much seam allowance. For the side, I just did 2 centimeters. You can do 0.5 or you can do just 1 inch, because for inseam sewing, excessive seam allowance is not going to be needed. Otherwise, your side seam will be bulky after sewing it. It won't lay flat. This is what I have before cutting, and I'll go ahead to cut so we can see what we have. This is the first stage after cutting, before cutting the inner dart to give me 4 pieces. I'm having 2 pieces now. Then I'm going to cut the dart to separate the center back from the side back, the center front from the side front, so that we can see clearly what we have. This is all we need for making a tube top, a strapless top, and a boobs top. And I'm going to be sewing them together at that very space. This is going to fit snugly to your body, and it's going to bring out your shape. To do now is to go ahead to cut my lining tool to make it also pin them down, like, because I'm going to be adding it only to the front, and I have it all pinned together, like side front and the side back. I'm going to sew the upper part so over to the right side. I'm going to put it on to let us, or should I use the word accentuated, at gaping or trying to fall off on. And this is going to be the foundation of my corset tutorial. And please, if you are watching my video for the very first time, please subscribe. Let me hit that 1K subscriber target. Thank you so much. Till next time. Bye bye.